Nerds, I'm so tired of hearing about how all these agents and AI is going to solve all of our problems in the coding world and it will replace us in 12 months. It hasn't happened. It's not going to happen. These LLMs are useful tools. They speed us up in some ways, they slow us down in others. You have to know how to code. You have to know the code that you're reading. You have to know what it's generating, read the PR, change it, go back, do your due diligence, make sure everything that it's produced is right. And to do that, you have to know how to code. So I wrote up a little bit of an article here. I'll talk through my thoughts on this, share my experience of learning to code, and we'll, debunk how all these LLMs are here to save your life and take our jobs. And, well, I guess maybe not save your life because they're not using it for things like that. The only way to learn to code is to code and make mistakes. Thousands of mistakes. You cannot vibe code and learn to code. It's just that simple. We'll talk about the rest of this in this article, but you just have to make mistakes. It's how the human brain works. You have to make mistakes to learn how to code. My first major coding project was in college during my first data structures class. This assignment was the most difficult thing I had done academically in my life. The assignment's purpose was to teach us to use a linked list by giving us text files that represented numbers. We were to parse two text files which contained a number way too large to store as an integer, so in each file there's two numbers. Then add the two linked lists together. Simple addition like 1 plus 1 would equal 2, so you'd output that to a file, and that file would be graded to see if it's the right number. So the project was basically just really getting into memory allocation and creating structs and using pointers in C. So kind of like really the shallow end of things, but still it was such a leap from all the previous assignments. I spent probably 40 hours writing that code in C for what maybe ended up being 150 lines of code. We'll talk about lines of code in here too. The most elegant solution to this problem I saw was done by my TA at around 60 lines of code. Wow, that's a lot less code. This was when I learned the power of striving to write as little readable code as possible to complete an assignment. So this is where LLMs kind of go off the deep end for me. They'll generate code, and they're happy to always generate code. They always want to be useful. Rarely is the answer, hey, you've already done this. We can kind of redo it with a little bit of a code and a little bit of a refactor. You have to know that that refactor is there, and you have to know to ask it, hey, let's refactor this. Don't generate any more code. Stop going off the rails. Like, make sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. You have to know that. You have to know how to code. You have to know what you want before it starts generating code. And so there's also this idea now of like, oh, I'm generating 100,000 lines of code a day. That sounds terrible. We don't need that much code. In this example, me as a complete novice, I thought I did a pretty good job, and I had a really small, concise program that did what the job was in 150 lines of code. And after the assignment was turned in, our TA showed us his solution to the project. And it was just the most simple 60 lines of code. Nothing was written to be a small line of code that's a shortcut that a human can't read and understand what it was doing. It was just a clean 60 lines of code that cut out anything that wasn't needed, and it just made so much sense reading his code. And whenever LLMs do, and they do a lot of work at once, it's never the case we just read it and it's fine the first time. So like I said, I spent 40 hours writing the code, but I don't know how many hours I spent thinking about the assignment, thinking about the code, talking with my friends about approaches, and absolutely thinking about the problem in my sleep. None of this goes on with vibe coding. The most insane thing I learned when I learned to code was how much you think about everything while you're sleeping. You could spend so long on a problem and be stuck. You could say, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to go get something to eat, whatever, sleep. And then you come back and within 10 seconds, you realize what was wrong, or you come up with the idea that you needed that you didn't have the whole time. And these moments of growth are what you need to make sure that your applications are running well and that you're writing only the code that you need. You need to have these experiences of, this isn't working. What do I need to do? Take a second to think about it and have the right idea. You can't just blindly trust what these things output. All right, so let's move on to what it would look like today. So let's say I had the same assignment today and I chose to vibe code it. I would copy and paste the prompt and example input output text files into the LLM, let it do its thing, run the code against the example input output. It would work, or more likely scenario, I would have to keep nudging it until it passed the test cases. And at this point, I don't even know what's going on. So Yeah, at this point, I'm flying completely blind with a false sense of security. The assignment came with 3 examples of input-output files, but those don't cover all the possibilities. So that last part, you'll have this problem either way, but it's just kind of like the vibe coding way of doing it is like, oh, well, it passed these 3 things. I guess I'm good. Let me just stop thinking about it. I'm done. You don't have the reps. Like, this is exactly what I was saying before. So you just spit it out, something came out, it looks like it worked, and you just move on, and that's it. That is the problem. Then when the LM eventually gets to an output that I'm happy with, I have a choice. Do I read all the code and understand every line of it? This is the biggest problem with using LLMs to generate code for you. You absolutely have to read every single line of code. And you have to understand every line of code. And usually, if you're not writing the code, you're not going to understand it very well by reading it. Anecdotally, and just from talking to developers in general, one of the things we are the worst at is going back and reading someone else's code, or even your own code from like a week ago, that you don't have a mental model on. It is so hard. This is what separates great developers from good developers, is being able to read code and know what's going to happen just from reading the code. You have to write a bunch of code to get the skill to read code and know what it's going to do. Vibe coding, you miss the part of all the pain of reading the code and logging the mental model and going over it and thinking about what's going to happen. So you'll never have this skill. You will absolutely never ever have the skill of being able to read code and know what it's going to do if you purely vibe code to learn to code. You have to write code to learn to code. Even at this point, it's so many less hours of getting reps in, reading errors, understanding what went wrong, and building foundational knowledge. There's no way someone vibe coding can come to appreciate pointers, alloc, malloc, and all the other things that make C beautiful. The vibe coder never felt pain, and they never had these experiences burned in their brain from repeated failure after failure. There was zero growth. This is just the human condition on learning anything. You have to go in, you have to feel pain, you have to know I made these mistakes, you have to see your console just output error and error after error, and you have to figure out what all these errors are. Until you do this, you'll never have the context for being able to use an LLM proficiently. Again, these are tools that we can use. You can use LLMs to help you write code. You have to review your code and know what you're reading. Let's back up to the point of an LLM spitting out code that works for the assignment. This is the most important step with LLMs. You absolutely have to know how to code. You have to have experience with patterns. You have to know what the entire structure application is going to look like. The LLM is only faster at typing than you are. It's not smart. It's not artificial intelligence. It can't think. There's no way for you to learn what you have no foundation to correct the LLM on. You have to know what you're reading, and you have to know that you're reading mistakes because you know how to code. So this is just the same idea. You have to know these things in order to correct the LLM. LLMs are trained on all the code that they fed it, and guess what? Most of that code is just going to be trash code. So it's these things that are spitting out code are trained on trash code, and then you expect it to be able to write something complex and unique for you. You can use these tools. It can type fast for you. You have to review the code. The biggest crime of vibe coding and it robbing people of learning to code is that there's no way a vibe coder can take their knowledge of C, for example, and transfer it to any other language. C creates a perfect foundation when learning to code. You learn about compilers, memory allocation, syntax, how to read documentation. The C documentation is awesome, and tons of other small details a lower level language forces you to master. My first job ended up using Ruby on Rails. After 2 years of just C, all the things I learned made Ruby so easy to understand right away. It also let me somewhat understand upfront all the amazing things Ruby can do that C can't. This experience of learning to code your first language is so transferable to all these other programming languages. The thing that it gives you is choosing the right language for the right job. And so without this experience, when you're going to set up your projects and do things, you're just blindly trusting things you've read elsewhere. And a lot of things you read are wrong, or you just don't know the right tool to use for the job. So it's just another layer of the LLM onion of giving you a false sense of security. Vibe coding is not and never will be coding. Do not give in to the hype about LLMs solving coding. LLMs are amazing tools. I use them every day. I fall into the trap of thinking one more prompt will fix all the mistakes the LLM just made. Sometimes it one-shots a small issue and speeds my task up. Learn to code. We still need you.